For my husband and I several years ago, if you've worshiped with us before, you've probably heard this part of my story, but we walked through one of those times where we found out our first doctor's appointment when we found out we were pregnant, that we not only were no longer pregnant, but I had developed a rare form of cancer inside of my womb. And for someone who had followed Jesus from a teenager on and felt like I had done the right things and I had been good and I had tried to be all of the things that I was told that I should be, it was that moment when I needed Jesus most that I felt like I didn't even know how to access him. It's kind of embarrassing to say, if I can be honest, because I was already in ministry. I was already walking with Jesus and leading people and loving people, all the while going home at night and going, God, I know that you're there because I see it in your word, but my heart is having a hard time connecting with my head. So the story goes on, and what was not supposed to be a big deal turned into 6 months of chemotherapy and uncertainty. And at month 4, we found out that I was gonna have to do some pretty intense chemotherapy, none like we thought that I would ever have to experience. And my sister had called that evening. She was a new believer at the time. And she said, you know what, I just think we need to just pray that God will show you something in his word. And my attitude was, I've already done that. But I amused her because she was a new believer, and as ministers, that's what we're supposed to do, right, with our family, just carry them along. And she prayed, and I opened my Bible. It was Isaiah chapter 54. The very first verse says, shout for joy, O barren, you who have borne no children, for yours will be as many as the sands of the ocean. And it goes on down to give these incredible passages to Israel to encourage and tell them to enlarge their territory. And the very last verse, verse 17, says, no weapon formed against you will prosper. And it was in that moment that I knew there were always gonna be weapons, but God was promising that it wasn't gonna prosper. And he's showing me that sometimes there's gonna be moments where I don't have to feel him, but I have to trust in his word. Isaiah 26 also says he will keep those in perfect peace, those whose hearts are set on him, who trust in him. So I knew in that moment that if my mind, my faith could line up with my heart, it could all happen. And in order for that to happen, I had to let go. And it took a little bit of a process. It took a couple of days of just letting go, a lot of walks by myself. Gosh, does that sound familiar with where we are right now? A lot of times with the Lord, and a lot of things maybe I didn't understand, but I was okay with because I trusted. We found out 2 months later that I was cancer-free from that moment. And a year and a half later, we had a little girl, and her name is Isaiah. She's 11 now. She's homeschooling, just like probably most of your kids are now. But I want to share that moment with you to say that my turn of events didn't cause God's hand to shift, but I can tell you one thing, my faith caused my heart to lift because Jesus knew exactly how to make that happen. It's through his word that if I just trust him, that I just put my faith in him, if I just surrender the things I could not control into his hand, I find that freedom that I was looking for.